Well, good morning, and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning, and we have a lot to talk about. As always, never a slow day here on Frankly Speaking. Let's get right to it. We're looking at the Israel-Hamas ceasefire breaking late last night from Fox News. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accused Hamas of backing out of a ceasefire deal to release hostages and bring a pause to more than a year of fighting. Netanyahu's office said Thursday his cabinet won't meet to approve the Gaza ceasefire until Hamas backs down from what is called a, quote, last-minute crisis. Netanyahu's office accused Hamas, without elaborating, of trying to go back on part of the agreement in an attempt to extort last-minute concessions. The Israeli cabinet was set to ratify it today. Now, they are making the rounds in the news cycle of who is to thank for this. Most in the media trying to give credit to Biden, but many behind the scenes giving the credit to Trump. And as J.D. Vance said over the weekend, and I'm paraphrasing, but when you make the threats that Trump made, I believe Hamas took that very seriously. Now, the phase of the timeline, again, if this all plays out, that was just breaking on Fox this morning when it comes to what Netanyahu accused Hamas of, which is trying to back out of the agreement. But if it does stand, phase one will halt fighting for 42 days with 33 Israeli hostages incrementally freed from captivity in exchange for the release of hundreds of Palestinians imprisoned by Israel. There are 97 hostages, civilians and soldiers in captivity, but only 60 are thought to be alive. On the first day of ceasefire, now set for Sunday, Hamas will release 3 hostages, then another 4 on the 7th day. After that, there will be weekly releases during the initial 6-week period. Israel, for their part, will let 30 Palestinian women, children, and elderly imprisoned go in exchange for every civilian hostage freed from Gaza. For every female Israeli soldier released, the Jewish state will deliver 50 Palestinian prisoners, including 30 facing life sentences. In exchange for bodies returned to Israel, all Palestinian women and children detained from Gaza by Israel since the war started on October 7, 2023, will be released. Meanwhile, Israeli forces will pull back into a buffer zone in Gaza and near the Israeli border that will allow displaced Palestinians to return to their homes in Gaza City and northern Gaza. About 600 trucks of humanitarian aid will flow in Gaza daily during the ceasefire, including 50 of them carrying fuel. Negotiations over the second phase of the agreement will start on the 16th day of the first phase. Are you following this? Phase 2. If Israel and Hamas reach a further agreement, all remaining hostages are supposed to be freed, and in return, Israel will completely withdraw from Gaza during this phase. Reaching the next step could prove difficult because Israel has said it won't relent to a total withdrawal until the terror organization's military and political power is completely wiped out. That is a good sign coming from Israel. Hamas said it won't release the last hostages until all Israeli troops leave. Hamas needs to agree to remove itself from power, something it has hinted it is willing to do, but could still be a factor in future governments, which Israel does not want. While the draft agreement states a second phase deal must be reached by the end of phase 1, Hamas has called for written guarantees that the temporary peace could continue until an agreement is struck. The terror group has said, though, it will abide by verbal assurances from the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar, but Israel has not agreed to that, and airstrikes could potentially start again. And finally, phase 3 would entail Hamas trading the bodies of the rest of the remaining hostages in Gaza in return for a 3 to 5 year rebuild plan in the decimated Palestinian territory under international supervision. So there's kind of your update again, though. Netanyahu saying, and we'll find out more about this, I just saw it in show prep this morning, Netanyahu said Hamas already trying to back out of that ceasefire deal. Now, they said that Biden and Trump's team worked together to get this ceasefire and hostage deal done, even CNN admitting that. It is also admitted in this piece from CNN that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called Trump first to thank him and then contacted Joe Biden. The cooperation between the two was, quote, almost unprecedented, said a senior Biden administration official. They said made possible by a rare intersection of interest between bitter rivals who both saw an opening following Trump's victory. And, of course, with the threats being made by Trump, pushing this deal forward, saying, you better have released all the hostages by my inauguration day or all hell will break loose. Brett McGurk, the longtime Middle East negotiator for President Joe Biden, has been planted in the Qatar capital for weeks in the hopes of a final agreement. He was joined in recent days by President-elect Donald Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff for the final push. They even divided up meetings across the Middle East to push the deal across the line. If McGurk was focused primarily on the parameters of the deal, Witkoff was on hand to emphasize Trump's desire to see a deal finished by Inauguration Day. After the agreement was announced, both the incoming and outgoing president took full credit, assigned the poisonous relationship between them indoors, according to CNN. Ultimately, however, the deal enables both Biden and Trump to claim victory. Trump made it very clear that there was a deadline. Because you would think if it was Biden's doing, this wouldn't be done within days of him leaving. It would have been done a lot sooner. This seems like a scenario where, of course, you expect Biden to take credit, but is that credit due? When Biden was asked about giving Trump credit, he literally, man, I got a frog in my throat this morning. He literally responded, "Is that a joke?" Biden saying, "I'm proud to say Americans will be part of that hostage release in phase 1. During a press briefing, and we're not going to go through all of this, the specifics as we just did, asked about the contribution of Trump's envoy to sealing the agreement. And I would also ask, but this was not asked by the reporter, about the threat that Trump made. Biden replied, "Well, this is the exact framework of the deal I proposed back in May. The exact." When a reporter pressed whether Biden or Trump deserved credit, the president said, "Is that a joke?" and then walked away. But even Biden insiders have admitted that it took Trump to close the ceasefire and Israel hostage deal. Multiple insiders and officials in both Israel and the U.S. told the New York Post that it was Trump's impending inauguration combined with the efforts of the Middle East Special Envoy, Steve Witkoff, that finally solved the problem that had proved to be a major hurdle and obstacle for President Biden and his team. A source with Trump's transition team described the conversation last weekend between longtime Trump pal Witkoff and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as straightforward, no phony platitudes, and, quote, very direct. Another official told Reuters Witkoff was able to pressure Netanyahu into accepting the deal and moving quickly. It's that conversation that shifted everything into motion. The agreement ultimately signed Wednesday was very similar to the terms that the Biden administration had been trying to get through since last May. But again, and I've got to find out more about this because it is Fox is the only one reporting it this morning. But Netanyahu accused Hamas of backing out of a ceasefire deal to release hostages and bring a pause, to more than 1 year in fighting. So we'll find out more about that. That is breaking news as of this morning. But again, I've got to find some more verification of it. A senior Biden official praised Trump for setting a sell-by date for the hostage release with that threat that he made. In any negotiation, any breakthrough diplomacy, sometimes you need a deadline. Sometimes that's an artificial deadline you try to create. In August, for example, we came together with a mediator that we worked hard at with 3 different countries, putting it together and tried to set a deadline to get this done. And again, as I laid out, we did not succeed in that. This is a Biden official. The transition from one president to another was one deadline. The official also admitted Witkoff, quote, played a very important role in full coordination with U.S. diplomat Brett McGurk, while also giving credit to the Biden administration, saying they worked as partners together, sometimes splitting the roles. And I don't see necessarily Trump even having perhaps, or people around Trump having an issue with saying they work together. I think when you have Biden coming out and saying, is that a joke, suggesting Trump had no role to play in this and Trump's envoy had no role, I think that set a kind of a nasty tone for this. The Biden official added that the catalyst for the intensive diplomacy was the defeat of Hezbollah, the ceasefire in Lebanon, and the massive isolation of Hamas. That got them back to the table and for the first time to accept a hostage list that led to this ultimate breakthrough. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We do have to talk, wow, did you watch Pam Bondi yesterday? That was quite a confirmation hearing. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We also have Biden's farewell address to the nation. Did you watch that last night? Some are calling it dark. Some are calling it even really embarrassing. We'll talk about that after we just give you a few more updates on the ceasefire and what others are saying, and then the farewell address to the nation by Joe Biden. Thanks for joining us. We're just getting started. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Welcome to Pangea Global Tea House.
Pangea Global Tea House offers comfort foods of the world with over 50 teas and a sampling of cuisine from over 10 countries. Come in and try our duck baki or eggs benedict. They are full of flavors your taste buds will thank you for.
Your tap water is delicious.
I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system.
What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants. It's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference at Culligan.com.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson Stew. Yes, it is being reported elsewhere as well. And unless you're a very early riser, you're perhaps hearing this first on Frankly Speaking, that Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu has accused Hamas of trying to back out of this ceasefire deal, this peace deal. We'll keep you updated on that. This is a breaking story. A developing story, but Netanyahu accused Hamas early this morning, Thursday for them, but early this morning, of backing out of a ceasefire deal to release hostages and bring a pause to more than 1 year in fighting. So this kind of changes a lot of the direction of the conversation because it's about who's taking credit. Now, we do have a comment from a viewer. Biden taking credit for peace deal is a joke. This resembles the same thing that happened when Reagan was coming following Carter. Absolutely. There's no doubt that those threats by the Trump administration played a very important role in this. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. Now, again, this is not a done deal. Things have changed, but it's still important to talk about where the credit is due as we near, hopefully, that peace deal. Also, Biden spoke about peaceful transition, then ripped Trump and the Republicans as almost anti-American and a threat to democracy. Then going on to talk about how Biden and his handlers divided the nation. Yes, you are absolutely right. He did use, it was a very dark speech last night, the farewell address. If you watched it, we will tell you a little bit about that. Let me just wrap up our discussion on Hamas. The IDF general credits Trump threat as a big change in securing the ceasefire. Again, the ceasefire somewhat on hold. We'll find out more about that as the day unfolds. The deal has been on the table since May of last year, and Hamas opposed it completely. Why? There's no real pressure on Hamas, said IDF Reserve Brigadier General Amir Avivi. Israel wanted to stop some of the humanitarian aid, especially some of the gasoline. But the administration wouldn't let us do that, so Israel has no major leverage on that. What's changed is two things. One, Israel defeated Hezbollah, and Hezbollah cannot support Hamas anymore. Also, Syria fell. Iran is weaker. But the big change is President Trump's threat. Once President Trump threatened them that if they don't release hostages, there will be hell, I think they understand that if they don't get a deal now, the chances of getting a good deal for them will be very, very low, if at all. And therefore, they made their own assessment, and they are inclined to do the deal, thinking that they'll maximize what they can get now and not wait to see what, quote, hell means. Exactly. This is that peace through strength. And that is why we saw during the first Trump administration, peace and prosperity. It's crystal clear. Once I heard, and I think many of us thought the same thing, once we heard that comment from President-elect Trump that all hell would break out, or how all hell would break loose if they don't have hostages released by his inauguration day, we knew that things were going to be done. We'll put it that way. Because even Trump supporters, I think, would admit that you don't know what Trump will do in a situation like that. And that's not a bad thing. You just don't know the answer. So if a Trump supporter doesn't know, Hamas surely doesn't know, and that struck fear in their hearts. They agreed to the ceasefire because any deal would be worse under Trump, is what the incoming White House National Security Advisor said. Clearly, the entire world recognized that this was the Trump effect, said Representative Mike Waltz. Waltz argued that Hamas had no choice but to accept the deal, which will lay the path to freeing 33 hostages over the next 42 days. Now, keep in mind, folks, I have to keep mentioning this. As of early this morning, it is being reported that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused Hamas of trying to back out of the ceasefire deal. So this is not set in stone. I'm just giving you some of the talk of what is happening over the last 24 hours of when this ceasefire deal was announced and who is giving credit to whom. But going back to Waltz, they believe President Trump when he said that there would be all hell to pay and any deal that was on the table would only get worse once he was in office. I mean, this is President Trump who took out Iranian General Soleimani, who took out al-Baghdadi. I think all these terrorist organizations understood now the type of man and the type of leader that they're dealing with. They have been there longer than the 1979 hostages and in much more horrific conditions, referring to, as the viewer did, about the end of Jimmy Carter's presidency that saw the Iranian hostages released before Reagan would take office. So now Trump praises the hostage deal, again, which is still a little shaky as of this hour. We'll keep you updated throughout the program. But he wrote on Truth Social, this is President-elect Trump, the epic ceasefire agreement could have only happened as a result of our historic victory in November, as it signaled to the entire world that my administration would seek peace and negotiate deals to ensure the safety of all Americans and our allies. I'm thrilled American and Israeli hostages will be returning home to be reunited with their families and loved ones. He also went on to further say that with this deal, my national security team, through the efforts of our special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, will continue to work closely with Israel and our allies to make sure Gaza never again becomes a terrorist safe haven. We will continue promoting peace through strength throughout the region as we build upon the momentum of the ceasefire to further expand the historic Abraham Accords. This is only the beginning of great things to come for America and indeed the world. That is President-elect Donald Trump. But as Cesar Azani from Fox said, hostage deal shows that Hamas took Trump's hell to pay threat seriously. This is an opinion piece. He's a spokesman for Israel's consulate in New York. Israel is about to go through an excruciating period of seeing our hostages come back from the darkness of Gaza as we eagerly await the rest to return home. Yet on the horizon, a new future looms, one of hell to pay for the Middle East's rogue actors, enveloped by hope for peace through strength as the Post editorial board says, as we move on from this in the next segment, we're going to talk about the farewell address because, as it is being reported this morning, Netanyahu has accused Hamas of trying to back out of that ceasefire deal. So it changes all of this to an extent. But cheer for the deal that'll bring hostages home and pray Israel is allowed to defeat Hamas once they're back. That is the big concern with this overall. Obviously, everybody wants to see the hostages return. It will be a good sign when they are returned. But if they let Hamas build and grow again, we are putting off the inevitable. We're putting off more, unfortunately, October 7th. As they have said. Hezbollah said it. Didn't work out well for them. Hamas said it. Wanting more October 7th. So, okay. Keep those comments and waves coming in. Did you watch Biden's farewell address? Some calling it dark. Warned of the oligarchy taking shape in America. Took numerous digs at, I guess you could say, Trump, Elon Musk, in roundabout ways. Very dark way out the door. Also, I was wondering if you happen to watch Bondi's confirmation hearing, what you thought of that. Also, did you see Jill Biden, Dr. Jill, letting the cat out of the bag? She's saying not too happy with Nancy Pelosi for what she did to her husband. So we've got all of that and much more, maybe some New York State issues, some things here about the incoming Trump administration. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Today's top story, increasing fuel costs continue to drive up inflation, making it harder to afford everything from food to home heating.
Here at Hustlesons, we know the only way to beat inflation is to fight inflation. So we're fighting back with zero interest financing and big cash rebates. Get a 4-person hot tub for your family for as little as $100 per month and pay zero interest. Or save up to $3,000 on a fabulous salt system hot tub. And of course, you will always get Hustlesons' unbelievable service. Don't let inflation fears kill your dreams. Fight back with Hustlesons. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hustlesons.
Most doctors recommend daily walks because of the many health benefits associated with walking. But how do you get healthy circulation boosting activity without leaving your chair? With Legzercise Pro, the natural circulation booster that uses continuous automatic leg movement to soothe pain and promote healthy circulation the natural drug-free way. Soothe pain and calm restless legs. Reduce swelling in your legs, ankles, and feet and stimulate healthy circulation. Stay active with Legzercise Pro.
Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Our beautiful view of historic Market Street in the Gafford District as we broadcast live from that exact street here in the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer. Yes, I watched the farewell. That was last night's farewell address to the nation by President Biden. At least he didn't sound like he was kicking me off his lawn. Well, that's good. But he still didn't convince me he was a great president. It has been a long wait for the new president, MAGA, this viewer writes. And yes, it did sound like he went out Trump bashing. Well, definitely went after the tech industrial complex, which the media loves because they are, number one, it's a dig at Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, which, by the way, did you see Mark Zuckerberg? Here's somebody that's censored with the DI initiatives and the fact checking and all of that. And now he seems to be going all in on Trump, donating to the inauguration. He is actually going to hold an inaugural ball, which to me is, I gotta be honest, kind of shocking. I had it here. I should have had it at a more convenient place, right? Since I knew I was going to talk about it. It is said that I'm not going to be able to find it. Here it is. Zuckerberg will host a party, for Trump's inauguration. Now, I had a comment from a viewer yesterday, and I don't remember if we got to read it or not, that said that they were concerned that they had Zuckerberg, Bezos, and Musk at the inauguration, just concerned. But Zuckerberg is among several big tech executives who are expected to be front and center at Trump's inauguration next week. He will be one of 4 hosts of black tie receptions on January 20th, joining the longtime Republican donors Adelson and Todd Rickett in hosting a party, quote, celebrating the inauguration of President Donald J. Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. Interesting. Anyway, so Biden focused in on the oligarchy and the tech industrial complex because, and the media, I say, loves that line because they get to invoke President Dwight Eisenhower's warning about the rise of the military industrial complex when he left in 1961. This is what Biden had to say. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy. Good. You got to get that threat of democracy because that was really a winning ticket in November. I mean, it's just like these hearings, learning nothing from November, where they're still focused, obviously, on 2020. They're still focused on January 6th. And in this case, they're still focused on this perceived threat to democracy. Where is this threat to democracy? According to Biden, it's coming from the oligarchy. But let me continue. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our democracy, our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. He drew attention to a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a few ultra-wealthy people and the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Now, Biden used his 15-minute address, according to the AP News, to offer a model for a peaceful transfer of power and, without mentioning Trump by name, raise concerns about his successor. So we want a peaceful transfer of power and then go on to bash his successor. As he has struggled to define his legacy, Biden, that is, and to steel the country against the return of Trump, this time the president, who has repeatedly called Trump a threat to the nation's system of governance, went even further, warning Americans to be on guard for their freedoms and their institutions during a turbulent era of rapid technology and economic change. So keep in mind, still pushing this idea of a threat to democracy, still pushing this idea that Trump is going to destroy our institutions. Keep in mind how many institutions were attacked and norms were attacked under this administration. Using lawfare, using the judicial system against their political opponent is just one very prime example. So many are calling it bitter that he sniped at some of the same tech moguls who were seen as helping the Democrats defeat Trump in 2020 through censorship of unfavorable coverage and censorship during COVID and all that. So the Biden administration loved the supposed oligarchy and the tech industrial complex when it benefited him, when it was able to censor the Hunter laptop story or anything that was deemed unfavorable to the incoming president, Joe Biden. Biden saying, in my farewell address tonight, I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. And that's a dangerous concentration of powers in the hands of very few ultra-wealthy people and the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Now, this is, I think, worth noting. Disgraced and pardoned first son, Hunter Biden, was seated just steps away from his father as the outgoing president called on Americans to respect, quote, the courts and, quote, pay their fair share of taxes. A little bit of irony there, maybe something very symbolic of that. Because here you have Hunter Biden, who was pardoned for his crimes of avoiding taxes. And, well, we can talk about the courts and the sweetheart plea deal that he could have got if his lawyers weren't so cocky. But Biden's seated just steps away from his father as the outgoing president called on you and all Americans to, quote, respect the courts and pay their fair share of taxes. So for how long we were lectured by this administration that no one is above the law, we learned on that fateful day that, yes, there is somebody above the law, and that is Hunter Biden. Biden ended his farewell speech with, quote, to me, family is everything. Now, Biden did not name names, but made the targets of his wrath clear throughout pointed comments. We're not going to go through it because you know who it is. It's Elon Musk and it's Donald Trump. Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit. We must hold the social platforms accountable to protect our children, our families, and our very democracy from the abuse of power. Now, I will say, giving up the fact-checking line about Zuckerberg, that was clearly about Zuckerberg. I'm still not, listen, I understand skepticism of a lot of people in this audience, not as much on Elon Musk, but some. We've got a lot of comments on people criticizing all of these tech giants. Bezos, I don't trust a Bezos or a Zuckerberg. And I think business-wise, they're smart to look at a landslide in November and say, whoops, we bet on the wrong horse. Let's start acting. That's the important lines. Let's start acting as the president's friend, the incoming president's friend. Now, with Bezos and Zuckerberg, they did it essentially after the fact, where at least Musk, you've got to say, jumped on the quote-unquote Trump train, campaigned with him, and those type of things. So that, to me, and spent a lot of money for the Trump campaign. So I think he put his money and his time and his talent where his mouth is, where Zuckerberg seems to be coming late to the party, and now for maybe business, just speculation, business reasons, now acting as if he's Mr. MAGA. It seems like a follower, not a leader. And I'm sure Trump gets some enjoyment out of that, knowing now that someone who was really the face of helping Biden get elected, censorship, really leftist ideals, now kind of begging for a seat at the table. There's got to be a kind of a good feeling involved with that. Now, I don't want to go through everything about each of the oligarchy, because that's what this article does. But the 46th president warned about artificial intelligence. Wait, hold on. Let me take a step back. He said America must enact tax policies meant to make the rich begin to pay their fair share, and that there should be new policies against the dark money behind too many campaign contributions. Even though much of it has benefited his own party, specifically Kamala Harris, think of that dark money. As I've said on this program, to the point of you probably getting sick of it, but never has this dark money, this big money, played such an important role in a presidential election, because it helped oust Joe Biden, because as Nancy Pelosi and Schumer were stabbing him in the back, big donors, big money, dark money, were turning off the spigots, not donating to him. So it was the perfect storm. He gets out, they open up the spigots again. Kamala Harris gets $1.5 billion, spends that and more on her campaign in, 107 days? Is that what it was? Now that it was 107 or 109. So $1.5 billion, and some reports say more closer to 20, and she is, or to 2, I mean, and $20 million in debt. So never has dark money, to use his term, played such an important role in a presidential race, and yet here now he's calling it out, even though it largely benefited his party. He also warned about, as I mentioned, artificial intelligence, saying nothing offers more profound possibilities and risk for our economy and our security, our society, and very often for humanity. Artificial intelligence even has the potential to help us answer my call to end cancer as we know it. But unless safeguards are in place, AI could spawn new threats to our rights, our way of life, to our privacy, how we work, and how we protect our nation. We must make sure AI is safe and trustworthy and good for all humankind. And in a clear barb at his successor, Biden said, quote, we need to amend the Constitution to make clear that no president is immune from crimes that he or she commits while in office. Are you sure of that, President Biden? Are you sure? He then said, I wish the incoming administration success because I want America to succeed. More on Joe Biden's farewell address. I see a lot of comments coming in. If you have not heard, it is being reported this morning that Netanyahu has accused Hamas already of trying to back out of the ceasefire deal. So that is in limbo as of this morning, kind of late breaking news coming in overnight. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Our lot is full of new vehicles ready to take home today. Trucks, cars, SUVs. Elm Chevrolet has what you need. Visit Elm Chevrolet on Church Street in Elmira or shop our complete new vehicle inventory online at elmchevrolet.com. Together, let's drive.
In the last 18 months, Bath Planet has given away 3 dream bathroom makeovers, and now it's your turn. It's our absolute pleasure to announce Dream Bathroom Giveaway 4. On March 3rd, one local family is going to get a dream bathroom makeover for free. Whether you want a tub to lounge or a walk-in shower for accessibility, Bath Planet is excited to give away our 4th free bathroom makeover. Enter now by scanning the QR code or stopping by either of our 2 locations.
Heather and I had an argument just like any other couple. I was lost and lonely. I had snapped, I had a gun, and I was going to take my own life. Heather helped me realize that there was still life to live. For the better of myself, my family, my weapon is now safely put away.
My son Ricky took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me in ways that I never knew that I could be broken. And I contemplated suicide. Afterwards, we found out his girlfriend, she was pregnant. If that was my grandson, I was gonna have to be here for him. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe.
A moment of crisis can happen to anyone.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
Where's your emergency?
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Give them a call today for all your business and home security needs. We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. So many great comments. Let's get right to them. Biden is going out with 36% approval rate. Oh, is that a joke? Like he said when asked who is taking credit for the ceasefire in the Middle East. Yes, those numbers, we'll get to those in a little bit, but disastrous polling numbers for Biden. And to your point, if you are just joining us, and the ceasefire is a little bit up in the air this morning. We just have to clarify that. That breaking late last night. But it's still worth talking about. But yes, when asked, does Trump deserve any credit? He says, is that a joke? I know. It's frustrating because we know it was that threat that really, really pushed things along. All right, next up, Morning Frank. Well, hey, morning. Kind of funny, Biden spoke about people paying their taxes. Would that include Hunter? Were any taxes paid on the money the big guy received for his cut in the Hunter-China deal? Great point. And I know you said that before I started mentioning about Hunter, but imagine that. Hunter Biden is in the room watching his father give his farewell address to the nation, and he talks about the courts and that Americans need to pay their fair share of taxes. I would say that would be awkward, but I don't think that embarrassment gene reached Hunter either. I don't think there's any type of embarrassment there for him. He was pardoned. At the end of the day, he got away with it all and got away with things that we don't know about because the pardon was such a blanket pardon. I don't know why I'm tongue twisted this morning. Having any crimes, known or unknown, committed over a 10-year period. So he's in high cotton, as they say. Next up, comment from a different viewer. The oligarchy, and I like this line a lot. Thank you for this comment. The oligarchy becomes a threat to our democracy only when they stop supporting the Democrats' version of authoritarianism. I laughed out loud when I saw that clip this morning. That's a great point. What a great point, because that is exactly what happened. The oligarchy, big tech, is only an issue now, only a threat to democracy when they don't 100% support the agenda of the left. Wonderful point. That's why we have the most astute viewers out there. Next up, Ken. Hey, Ken. Ken says, isn't it amazing the things that the Biden administration can get done on their way out with days, hours, minutes before Trump gets sworn in an effort to take credit for things that they know the Trump administration would have quickly accomplished, like a deal to get the hostages released and banning red dye. Also, in my opinion, it's it's a criminal affront to the American people for the Biden administration to sell off border wall materials. I agree. Ban drilling on 625 million acres of offshore water, and push yet another college loan forgiveness program. All being done to hamper the Trump administration's efforts to bring safety, fiscal responsibility, and prosperity back to America. Again, great point, Ken. I agree. All this stuff getting done out the door, twofold. Things that Trump would have got done that, or did help do, like the ceasefire that is a little wavery this morning, but would have done so that they can take credit. It's embarrassing. But also how much he can get done to hamper this incoming administration. That's why J.D. Vance said on that program this weekend that it was on Fox. I think it was Fox Sunday. J.D. Vance saying that they have left their administration, the Biden administration has left the Trump and Vance administration with a garbage fire was a term, or a dumpster fire, excuse me, was a term that he used. So yes, they know what they're doing. Devious. CNN put together some of the key lines from President Joe Biden's farewell address. I'm not going to read them word for word, but just talking about the oligarchy is a big takeaway that most of the media had. Again, to that viewer's point, it's only a threat to democracy when it no longer helps the left. He issued a warning over social media and tech companies. He argues that it's time to take time, or it will take time for his accomplishments to be felt. That's an ironic one. This is one we haven't talked about enough yet. I love how this sets him up. Listen, I'm not telling you anything. You know what this does, and because we've heard it already in the media. Well, the economy's doing really good. You don't expect it yet. You don't feel it yet. But boy, soon into Trump's administration, the economy's going to be great because of Biden. Rewriting the history books before the history books are even written, in a way. Biden is immensely proud of his list of accomplishments he leaves behind and has said he doesn't believe he's received enough credit for them. That seems like a real leader's attitude. He ticked through many of them on Wednesday, though chose not to expand on them in detail during his final appearance before the American people. He urged patience as his record is assessed, suggesting history could view him differently than polls. So sad. But this very much was what happening. This happened with Obama, too, where Obama tried to take credit for everything that Trump accomplished. Biden trying to do so preemptively. Quote, it will take time to feel the full impact of what we've done together. Uh-oh. Because if we're not feeling the impact already, what's the full impact going to feel like? I know he's trying to present that as a positive. That sounds like a dangerous negative to me. It will take time to feel the full impact of what we've done together. Well, the impact so far is deciding what groceries to get and what you can't afford and what bill to pay. And yeah, but I'll continue. The seeds are planted and they'll grow and they'll bloom for decades to come. Well, that's someone patting themselves on the back to full effect, isn't it? He listed some of his accomplishments, including lowering prescription drug prices for seniors, passing gun safety laws, and helping veterans get health care. He also touted foreign policy accomplishments, and pointed to how he strengthened NATO. Ukraine is still free and we've pulled ahead of our competition with China and so much more. Wow. Yep. Rewriting history preemptively. Artificial intelligence presents a great risk. We talked about that. The president mulls who we are. The nation, he said, was constantly being tested. And through good times and tough times, we've withstood it all. This idea that it's going to be a bad 4 years. This is very lecturing, Jimmy Kimmel-esque, where you might have voted for him. I feel sorry for you because you don't know how bad it's going to be for you. So condescending. Using the internal girding of the Statue of Liberty as a metaphor, Biden said storms are always coming that will bend but not break the nation's underpinning. I've been thinking a lot about who we are and maybe even more importantly, who we should be. So he's presenting this even though Trump not only won the Electoral College but the popular vote. So he's delivering this to a nation that overwhelmingly voted for the person he's now trying to paint this dark picture of. Don't worry, you're going to last through this storm the next 4 years. You may have voted for Trump. You're not smart enough to realize the next 4 years are going to be tough. I mean, it's so, well, Again, it goes back to the soul-searching conversation we've been having, and Democrats have clearly not had that soul-searching moment because we saw it with Bondi's confirmation hearing yesterday. Or whether it's the farewell address. It's about everything's a threat to democracy. It's about January 6th. It's about 2020. Nothing moving forward. That's why this is being called bitter. It's being called dark. He said that he also encouraged Americans to stay engaged with the democratic process. We have to stay engaged in the process. I know it's frustrating. A fair shot is what makes America America. Everyone is entitled to a fair shot, not a guarantee, just a fair shot, an even playing field. He urged respect for democracy, and he implores Americans to stand guard. To you, the American people, after 50 years of public service, I give you my word. I still believe in the idea for which the nation stands, a nation where the strength of our institutions and the character of our people matter most and endure. Now it's your turn to stand guard. May you be the keeper of the flame. May you keep the faith. I love America. You love it too. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you for this great honor. All right, let's take a short break. Running just a tad bit late because I heard the Corning whistle. I will say that the breaking news this morning, coming in late last night, Netanyahu has already accused Hamas of trying to back out of the ceasefire deal. We'll try to get you more information on that. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Is it most important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Harder makes it hard to keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water softener, revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Give them a call today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So glad that you joined us this morning. So a comment from a viewer saying, 2 comments. Truth is, Biden did not write the speech. Absolutely. His handlers did. And they are spiteful because their power and influence ends on the 20th. Yeah, they no longer can pull the strings. Though, I will say the Dana Perino from Fox News, yesterday, she had an interesting point on when you talk about the speechwriters. Because, I mean, that's not even a dig necessarily at Biden. I mean, every president has numerous speechwriters. Maybe not. Trump does have speechwriters, but not. Trump's interesting in the sense of his posts online and when he goes off the cuff. Those aren't written for him ahead of time, obviously. But, you know, when he even admitted it during the Al Smith dinner sometimes where, oh, this is really corny. Who wrote this one, you know? But Dana Perino says, you and I sit together every day on the 5, and you know that I try to be really nice. This is on Jesse Waters' show, by the way. And I intend to find something that I could say. This is in regards to Biden's farewell. While that was great news of the day at the top, understandable, big soaring attempt at a rhetorical push for unity. And I'm like, okay, I'm following. And then what in the world was he talking about? For example, when he talks about dark money, to seem to remember that just last week he gave the Medal of Freedom Award to George Soros. Brilliant point. I overlooked that. We were talking about all the dark money being involved in Harris's campaign. What a great point by Dana Perino, because I already forgot that. The Medal of Freedom was awarded to George Soros. Because again, to that viewer's point about oligarchy, it's only dark money if it goes to a different candidate, if it doesn't go to Democrat causes. So it's not an issue when it's George Soros because he's supporting the quote-unquote right side. What a great point. He also talked about the fact that they had the biggest economic rebound ever. He never mentioned COVID, which was the entire premise of his presidency. Today I looked at a poll. There was another poll, the Gallup poll. They had 18 issues. Which ones are you feeling better about? Only 1 out of 18 did people feel better about, and it was LGBTQ plus issues. He's sitting there talking about all these things that he's done, and I'm just like, this rings hollow. To me, it felt like the speechwriters have already left the building and that they asked ChatGPT to write a speech for Joe Biden in which he doesn't remember that he was president for the last 4 years. If you ask people, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? The answer is no, except for maybe the solar companies and the Delta smelt. Wow, good for her. Great piece on that. The Medal of Freedom Award for George Soros, and then he lectures us about dark money. Rachel Maddow said Biden's stark warning about Trump put a shiver down my spine. Now, of course, we know that she's on MSNBC. She just took a pay cut from 30 million down to 25 million. I think she'll be fine for a show that she does 1 day a week. Now it's being reported that she's going to do it 5 days a week. But so times are tough. Down to 25 million. I had wondered heading into his speech whether he was going to try to give some sort of warning to the country when he had some advice, basically planning advice, that the speech might not be very long. And when we saw the White House today release what they called a letter, it was really about a 100+ page long book explaining his view of his own accomplishments during the term. I had wondered, okay, well, they're not taking a lot of time in the speech. They have spelled out the list of accomplishments. Anyway, I don't want, why am I reading all this? But it's dangerous because this is what they're doing to you with this oligarchy, with this concentration of power. And when they were going to the press and the truth, and it's stark and sober. And like I said, it put a chill down my spine. I think he's correct, and I'm glad he took the time to say it. So he released, I didn't realize they had that letter, released a letter patting himself on the back, basically giving a warning to the media. You better write my legacy this way. If you ever want a Democrat to get back in office, this is what I've done, whether or not, it's the same with the economy. Never mind what you're seeing and experiencing. Believe me with what I say from this stat from some bureaucrat. It's been really a hallmark of his whole presidency. Never mind what you're feeling and seeing. Believe what I am telling you. And when it comes to inflation, it doesn't work because you have your grocery bills, you have your bills. But that's what that letter is that Biden released. This is what I want you to say about my legacy. David Axelrod, and I'll get your thoughts on this, said, listen, I think that was maybe one of the best speeches I've ever heard Joe Biden give. How many times do you think that's been said about a Democrat president? The only time they couldn't say it about his performance was during the debate. But this happened with Obama. This happened with even Harris, who wasn't president. It's always, that might be the best speech they've ever given. So, I mean, do they just progressively get better and better and culminate on the last one, which is the best? Because very rarely do you hear that there was a misstep. It's always one of the best speeches. But anyway, and the reason is that he made the speech about the country. Yes, he claimed credit for progress, but the speech was about the country that he believes in. The country that he sees, the challenges and threats that he sees. And ultimately, it was a very optimistic speech. Did you get that takeaway, that it was optimistic? That we can overcome them if we are serious about meeting them. And that, you know, when he said the America of our dreams is always within our reach. I think he believes that. You know, I remember him as a young man who came to Washington. He was a phenom back when he was 30 years old. He was going to be president of the United States someday. He was full of vim and vigor. It's poignant to see him in his final stanza deliver a speech that I think very much encompasses his fundamental belief in the country, which was lecturing you and basically telling you prepare for how bad it's going to be. We got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
It's a new season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Rich and Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon. Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is History Making. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. If you are just joining us, Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu has accused Hamas of trying to back out of that ceasefire deal, so we'll keep you updated on that. Let's go to some comments and wrap up our number one. Ken says, Biden's speech was more of the same. His handlers shaped the speech to praise the progressive agenda that they forced on the American people through their puppet. They projected their views that most people don't agree with on the Republicans and tried to scare the country with lies about the intentions of the incoming Trump administration. One takeaway from the speech was that Biden didn't make too many mistakes in reading his handler's speech. Interesting. Yeah, I would say that you're right. I'm sure it was practiced over and over again because there was quite a few little gaffes when he was talking about the ceasefire that's now coming into question. But there was quite a few gaffes and awkwardness there, a lot of mistakes with names and like that. So this must have been one that he just practiced, or maybe he was just having a good day. You know, that was admitted by his administration, people behind the scenes, that he has good days, he has good hours, things like that. Perhaps it was that. Now, the New York Post another comment from a different viewer. Oh, yeah, I don't have time to get to another topic. Another comment from a different viewer. Since Jokin Joe is wanting to take credit for his accomplishments, let's let him have it. Unsecured borders, terrible economy, an empty wallet, and one of the most corrupt administrations. Thank you very much. Yes, that didn't come up. I don't think that came up in the farewell address. Did you watch farewell address? Your thoughts? We're going to talk a little bit more about it. I do want to get into the Bondi confirmation hearing. What a great job that she did. At one point saying, I'm not going to be bullied by you. You know, that's all they have. The New York Post has an editorial. I think it was New York Post. Yes, it was the Democrats' grandstand through the Trump nominee hearings because cheap shot politics is all that they have. And yes, I've got to agree with them. We'll talk about that piece a little bit later on. Your thoughts on that? That's all they have, that grandstanding. And they keep going back to the well, that same well that helped cost them the election. So not learning from their past mistakes where people said, okay, enough with January 6th. You want to focus on the negatives in the history? Let's move forward. Let's move forward for 2020. And the American people voted overwhelmingly. The people spoke. So we're going to talk about all of that and much more, maybe a couple New York State issues if we have a chance. Headed out the door, but not sure. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Hour number 2, mere moments away.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
When you think boots, think Hesselson. Hesselson's. Hesselson's has the largest selection of work boots in the area. Composite and steel toe boots, Met Guard boots, soft toe boots, and hikers, duty and western boots all in one location. Hesselson's, Elmira Heights. Hesselson's has men's and ladies boots in all sizes and widths. Choose from the largest names in the industry. Danner, Carolina, Timberland Pro, Keene Utility, Thorogood, Area, and Georgia, to name just a few. Hesselson's has been locally owned and operated since 1955, so when you think local service and great selection, think Hesselson's. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Are you ready for winter in New York State? Ready for thrills like this? Discoveries like this? Views like this? Are you ready to make memories? Plan the perfect trip or have an impromptu getaway. It's time to explore everything that makes New York easy to love. Discover more at iloveny.com.
Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. I am your host, Frank Acom. Just as an update, with Netanyahu accusing Hamas of trying to back out of that ceasefire deal, so we do have a delay on the ceasefire deal that was much talked about yesterday. We also learned that Israeli airstrikes killed at least 70 people in Gaza overnight, Palestinian authorities said, hours after a ceasefire and hostage release deal between Israel and Hamas were announced. So we'll keep you updated on anything that we learn. Comment from Ken. Ken wanted to follow up with his last comment saying, I forgot to mention that Biden's handlers are preemptively taking credit for the Trump administration getting the country back on the right course. Paraphrasing, Biden read their message stating that the country won't realize the positive impact of the work they accomplished for many years. Yes, I mentioned that, Ken. Thank you. I mentioned that. And it's so... They did it under the Obama administration. You know, when things aren't going great, they say, but they're going to be good. And that's the work that we did, trying to kind of take credit for Trump's administration already. It's laughable. It's so predictable. It's, you know, it's almost cliche in politics, but it's frustrating because, you know, Biden and Harris, especially if Harris runs in 2028, she'll be running against the idea all of this was ours. It was Biden and me. We did this. Trump wants to take credit. And they always give some weird statement. Well, you know, it takes more time than this, or, you know, it's Trump didn't have the time. It was clearly Joe Biden. And it's, yes, preemptively rewriting history. You're right, Ken. The Post editorial board said, give it up to old Joe. At least he's consistent. Always bitter, lying, and barely making any sense. Biden spent 4 years dodging the press, but expected every network to preempt their regular programming to air his farewell. Wheel of Fortune would have been more enlightening. First, classless Biden refused to give his successor, President-elect Trump, any credit in getting the Gaza peace deal over the line, saying 3 different ways it was me, all me. No mention of how Biden spent years threatening, undermining one of the United States' closest allies, Israel, and maybe that's why he couldn't get anyone to take him seriously. Then it was on to the regular propaganda. Biden again claimed that he created millions of jobs, a bald lie he is never giving up on. Tripping over his words, Biden then went on a thinly veiled rant against Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, claiming that without government censorship of social media, democracy will die. Fear the oligarchy. Yes. If they're not censoring ideas that the Biden administration or Democrats don't like, then they are a threat. They do have a habit of hiring unqualified drug addicts to access to their powerful father. Any good will one might have for this elderly man with a poor memory evaporates into the face of this arrogance. Doing his patented whisper speaking, Biden drips with anger, not at the state of the world, but that he doesn't get any credit. He leaves office a deeply unpopular, senile crank. There was only one true statement in the entire speech, quote, nothing is more important to me than my family. With the pardon of his corrupt son, we don't doubt it. For the rest of us, good riddance. That's the New York Post editorial board. Yes, Hunter Biden watching that speech feet away as his father gives a farewell address telling you have to pay your taxes. Twitter, X, it's just hard to say X and make it not sound weird, really exploded over the farewell speech. A lot of comments coming in. Joe Biden discussing democracy, a free press, institutions, and the abuse of power in his final speech is rich, said Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Greg Gutfeld from Fox News saying, what an embarrassing and pathetic end to an embarrassing and pathetic term. Clay Travis said, Joe Biden can't even read. Every time he speaks, it gets worse. Trying to run him in 2024 is the most reckless and indefensible presidential decision in any of our lives. That's true. Think of that. If he didn't have that bad debate performance, folks, he was on track to run for 4 more years. Now, he believes he could have won. I'll let you be the judge because we'll never know. But I don't mind him taking credit and saying that he'd win because that is kind of a dig at Pelosi, isn't it? Doesn't matter because at the end of the day, Trump won. But that's such a good point. They were willing to prop him up. They were telling us he was sharp as a tack for how long? That he was healthy, the best he's ever been. And that now saying he didn't get out until it was too late. But trying to run him in 2024 is the most reckless and indefensible presidential decision in any of our lifetimes. That's Clay Travis. I thought that's a very good point. Gabrielle Hoffman, Independent Women's Forum Center, said, my thoughts on President Joe Biden's farewell address, it was underwhelming and divisive. I'm relieved his 4-year term is coming to an end. Mr. Biden failed to bring Americans together and pushed terrible whole of government policies that weakened us on many fronts: energy, national security, economic, small business, foreign affairs, and general freedoms. History won't look kindly on Biden's tenure. He's now the most unpopular U.S. president in history. Mark Wayne Mullen, who really making a name for himself. He was at the Hegseth confirmation hearing and basically telling, hey, how many of you want to talk about Hegseth drinking in the past? How many of you have shown up to vote drunk? But saying, Joe Biden mentions climate hysteria ahead of actual priorities like border security, lowering costs, and peace through strength. They never learn. And that's really been, Daryl Issa, I haven't heard from him in a while, saying Joe Biden's going out of office the same way he went in. Petty, partisan, and frankly, not telling the truth. Now, needless to say, Democrats had a different opinion. Former President Obama tweeting out, 4 years ago in the middle of a pandemic, we needed a leader with the character to put politics aside and do what was right. That's what Joe Biden did. At a time when our economy was reeling, he drove what would become the world's strongest recovery with 17 million new jobs, historic wage gains, and lower health costs. He passed landmark legislation to rebuild our nation's infrastructure and address the threat of climate change. I'm grateful to Joe for his leadership, his friendship, and his lifetime of service to this country we love. That's Barack Obama. You see some similarities in what he posted and the speech that Biden gave. Just something to keep in mind. And as I mentioned, it's a cliche. In my opinion, it has become a cliche in politics where if it's a Democrat, it's the best speech of their life. It's their best debate performance of their life, whatever the case may be. Liberal commentator Harry Sisson said, President Biden just gave the best speech of his presidency. His farewell address was incredibly moving. I will always be thankful to President Biden and his talented administration. Thank you to everyone who served and gave America an amazing 4 years. An amazing 4 years, huh? Is that how you look back at it? Also, thank you to his talented administration. Is that kind of a subtle way of saying it was his administration that did all the work? Talented? Anyway, you know the speech. Miranda Devine, who does not pull any punches, she writes for New York Post. She said, self-deluded Biden is spending his last days as president, showcasing all the same lies and cementing his tarnished legacy. He promised to be a standard bearer of decency, respecter of norms, and the rule of law. He presented himself as a unifier who would help the country heal after the pandemic, a man of integrity and impeccable character, unlike his wretched predecessor. Yet behind closed doors, it's the devious recesses of his soul. Joe plotted and planned just two things: self-aggrandizement and vengeance. Joe paid lip service to the grab bag of virtuous goals, but really, he was all about himself, as he has been his whole life. Hence his Jerry Springer-style family life that he and Jill always have dressed up as the Waltons. Now he leaves office as the most unpopular president in history other than Nixon, according to a recent Gallup poll. So in the days before his failed presidency vanishes, he and Jill are scurrying around, delivering set-piece speeches and soft soap interviews in a vain effort to craft a glowing legacy. His farewell address from the Oval Office was the last of these scripted delusions, studded with lies and boasts and grandiose lines from history written by others. The most divisive president in recent memory claims he had kept my commitment to be president for all Americans. The president whose administration and deep state protectors bullied social media companies into censoring American speech, including the New York Post, claimed to champion a free and independent press. I don't want to go through everything, but she does a great job. You can find the full piece of his real legacy from Miranda Devine at the New York Post. She says, yes, character is destiny. Joe's is carved in stone now as permanently as the greats on Mount Rushmore, whose memory he sullied and who Pelosi laughably mused he might join. But legacies can't be controlled. They are the sum total of your character, the way you lived your life, the other lives you touched, the character of the children you raised, the judgment of everyone who saw your conduct. America sees Joe Biden now for who he is, a one-term failure, a Tammany Hall grifter who sold out his country, an insufferable blowhard whose only claim to fame was that he did more damage than any of his predecessors. His term in office was a brief and unfortunate interruption of the truly historic presidency of the man he tried to destroy. Joe's legacy is to be sandwiched by Trump in history. That's why he is trying to rewrite history, and as I said, preemptively rewrite history to suggest that anything good that comes from the Trump administration, be patient, as he said. The seeds have been planted and it will bloom. So that means anything good coming from the Trump administration, you'll have Biden, his handlers, the Obama-era leaders coming out on the Sunday shows, on the week and the nighttime shows, saying that this is all Biden's doing. It's so predictable. I could record a show ahead of time, put it in the can, and just skip a day, a year from now, with what will be said. Because that's what they do. It's the same reason why they laughed at you and ridiculed you when you said you were struggling to pay your bills. They said, no, never mind what you're feeling. Look at this bureaucratic report on page 478. You're actually doing good. It's the same idea here. All this is, Trump didn't have time to do this. It was all Biden. You can see the writing on the wall, folks, so just buckle in and prepare for it. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us.
Are you or someone you love at risk of falling in the home? Did you know 80% of home falls happen in the bathroom? If you are still stepping over a tub to take a shower, please call Bath Planet for a free design service. Our certified design team will take all the measurements and work with you to design a bathroom that never has to sacrifice style for safety. Go with the company that people trust. Bath Planet, 2 locations serving the entirety of the Twin Tiers. Call today.
Lease a brand new 2025 Chevy Silverado 1500 LT Crew Cab 4x4 with GM Lease Loyalty or Conquest Bonus for only $449 a month for 36 months. Make car buying simple. Drive your deal at Simmons Rockwell Chevrolet in Bath.
Your tap water is delicious.
I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system.
What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants. It's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference at Culligan.com.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Name something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30.
The The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Let's go through some comments from viewers. Biden's legacy is written in a laptop and diary. That's a very good point. Biden took credit for a different comment from a different viewer. Biden took credit for the success of beating COVID, which Trump had secured vaccines prior to his exit. So many of the jobs Biden spoke of were people getting back to work after COVID. That's why they kept pushing that narrative, that the economy boomed with him, hoping that you'd forget of the jobs that were lost during COVID that just naturally came back. So yes, that sadly is how bad, not sadly, that is how bad their legacy is, that they have to use that number, which is deceiving and misinformation, disinformation. No, that's their word, about what he accomplished, but that's all they can hang their hat on, I should say. So yes, that's a good point. Next up, so Biden thinks he would have won. He said so. He thinks, but he also said, take it with a grain of salt, he said that he thinks he could have won, but he also thinks Harris could have won. I'm not making that up. That's not some type of joke at his mental decline. He actually said that in an interview recently. So Biden thinks he would have won. Oh, maybe he could win first place in a cakewalk in an old folks home. A cakewalk. Thank you, viewer. Different viewer. I think you have some of the best intelligent, balanced viewers I've seen on a local show. They're going to be very helpful to make New York great again. I'm going to say, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, the only change I would make is I'd get rid of the local show. I think in any show on TV. I think you have some of the best intelligent, balanced viewers I've seen on any show. I'm just editing that for you. Putting words in your mouth, but that's the way I feel. So thank you for that comment. Yeah, I don't know how you'd even pronounce this. M-N-Y-G-A. Manga? Doesn't flow off the tongue like MAGA. Perhaps together we could come up with a good new comeback slogan for New York. I'd like to hear from some of the viewers on some. Yeah, we can't really make America great again. Make New York great again sounds good, but it doesn't, when typed together, doesn't sound like MAGA. Sounds like a whole kind of, maybe it sounds like you're cursing in a different language or something. Oh, here you go, Ken, if you're watching. I would vote for Ken as the president of the Make New York Great Again campaign. Ken, you're getting all these homework assignments. You were asked to watch the State of the Union. Now you're being asked to run as president of the Make New York Great Again campaign. Well, we have a first. Do we have a second? Thank you, everyone. Liz Peek had an interesting point, just saying that Biden keeps smearing lipstick on his pig of a presidency. You won't believe the results. Well, yeah, the results are these poll numbers that are just, and that was a little clickbaity there. A recent CNN poll showed 61% of the country views Biden's presidency as a failure, with 38% viewing it as a success. That's on CNN, folks. Not a conservative hotbed. 61%. The good news is that Americans are paying attention and no longer believe Joe Biden. They judge Biden on his record to have been a terrible president, even as Democrats and their allies in the liberal media tell you otherwise. That's why they elected Donald Trump and why they'll be cheering the end of the Biden era on Monday. Yeah, and that's a point that I think Liz Peek raises. That is a very good point. Biden essentially giving his farewell address last night, or the way the media talks to you about his legacy or about what is being done, is presented from an angle as if there's no way you voted for Trump. Yet the numbers show there's a good chance you did vote for Trump. So it is interesting. Biden leaving office with a record low approval rating. 61% say his presidency was a failure. Whew. That is not good news for Biden and his legacy that he spoke so highly of. But you know your legacy is not good, number one, when you hang your hat on numbers that are complete disinformation, to use their term, when it comes to how many jobs they rescued. No, the jobs came back naturally after a pandemic. So when that's the only thing you can hang your hat on, and then your legacy is so bad that you say, okay, you might not see it yet, but it's coming. Essentially saying, we're already signaling we're going to take credit for the job that Trump does. That goes to show you don't have a good legacy. Just wait, be patient 4 years, we couldn't do it, but I bet you in the next year, everything that Biden planted will come to fruition. But Jill, being reported yesterday, admitting that Nancy Pelosi pushing Joe out of the re-election bid was disappointing. Oh, by the way, I know I keep saying this, but it is breaking news from overnight. Netanyahu accused Hamas of trying to back out of the ceasefire deal. If you are just joining us, unless you have very odd hours, you may not have heard that by now. Not odd in a negative way. Sorry, I have odd hours. I didn't mean it in a biased way. But yes, that ceasefire deal now hanging in the balance. Not sure where that's headed. We'll keep an eye on that. But Jill Biden admitting that Nancy Pelosi pushing Joe out of the re-election bid was disappointing. We were friends for 50 years, said Jill, in an interview published by the Washington Post. It was disappointing. It'll be interesting if they do ever write like an honest portrayal of what happened, an honest portrait of what happened when they brought down Joe Biden. That would be a book that you'd want to read, but I don't see anybody reporting on that because I believe it will be very negative to too many quote-unquote power players, whether that's the Bidens, the Pelosi's, the Schumers, people we may not even be aware, Obama, behind the scenes working to get him out. That would be a great book. Let's just say I was disappointed with how it unfolded, the First Lady said. I don't know. I learned a lot about human nature. I think that's all I'm going to say. Yeah, a person who's been loyal to the Democrat Party for 50 years, Pelosi gets him out, then brags about that, acting like she's the godfather, saying I did what I had to do. Then when it was negative after Harris lost and it was looked at as not a good thing, she then blames Biden for not getting out early enough. I could understand why Jill starts to question human nature. She didn't use the term question, but start thinking about human nature. She said, I learned a lot about human nature. At the time, it was reported that Pelosi had played the bad cop to Chuck Schumer's good cop in convincing the president to bow out. Other outlets reported that Pelosi threatened to release internal polling showing that Biden had no chance against Trump if the president insisted on carrying on. Pelosi then endorsed Harris for the nomination rather than advocating for an open primary, only to later blame Biden for not exiting the race quicker. Yeah, I can understand why Jill could be upset. Anyway, she also revealed what transpired, just as a side note before we take another break, with Trump and Notre Dame, where they seem to be chummy. Seem to be buddies, just like, you know, to Trump's point, and I'm paraphrasing, but when they were talking about him talking with Obama, and he's like, yeah, those look like two people that were having a good time, that like each other. Maybe we do, but everybody likes me, is essentially what he said. Well, yeah, if you recall, him and Jill had a great conversation, but in the scheme of things, at least Trump tried to take Biden out the right way through a presidential run, through going through the primary, doing all that. You know, he did it, and he was successful. Well, ultimately taking out Harris, but he's not as bad if you think of Pelosi, if you're a Democrat, Pelosi or a Schumer. Trump did it the right way. But so they met together. They were at the Notre Dame opening. They asked, you know, they're smiling and laughing together. Said, yes, because you're both talkers. Yeah, okay. They had a good meeting with your husband in the Oval Office. Yes, because they're both good talkers, Jill replied. Joe and I respect our institutions, our traditions. It's very important to me that they continue, and what would be the point of nastiness? Yeah, that was interesting. So just why be nasty? All right. Oh, by the way, right before we go to break, not that I think this is a major issue, because I do want to talk about the hearings yesterday. Michelle Obama is skipping Donald Trump's inauguration. We mentioned that. The reason being given by anonymous sources is because, quote, she's no phony. While her husband appears to be playing nice, Michelle won't do the same. She's on an extended holiday visit. Some in the media, not me, have questioned if there's a little trouble in paradise because she has been gone for so long. I am not saying that whatsoever. I'm just saying, reporting to you what is being reported elsewhere, that there's questions there. Or these people are asking that question. I believe she didn't. I'm surprised she missed Jimmy Carter's funeral. She was in Hawaii for that. But I'm not surprised. I'm actually, if I'm being honest, I'm surprised at some of the people who are attending the inauguration, respecting the institutions and the traditions. I don't know. I haven't heard everybody when it comes to past presidents who are going to be there, but it'll be interesting to see who makes it and who doesn't. That's on Monday. Looking forward to watching that and talking about it on Tuesday. All right. Yeah, we better take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us.
Football Show breaks down all things NFL. GMFB Overtime.
Check out top highlights, player interviews, special guests, and everything in between. 5 days a week.
GMFB Overtime. It's football for everyone.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. This is Crime Expose.
It's chilling, taunting.
We knew exactly who it was.
Blood stains on her shorts.
See you in September.
The Big Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So many great comments coming in from viewers. First off, vote out Hochul, make New York superb again. I like that. I don't know how you'd say that. I like superb, though. Thank you for that, viewer. Ken writes in, Ken, who has been recently drafted to be the president of the Make New York Great Again campaign by another viewer. And he may not even realize it yet. I'm not sure what that draft process looks like. But Ken says, I can't believe that I just heard you say Democrats and honestly in the same sentence. So I said, because I wasn't sure what he meant, so I just texted him. And he said, you said if the Democrats wrote a book and were honest in it about what happened between Pelosi and Biden. Good point. That's why I kind of, what's the word I want to look for? I knew that book wouldn't come out. I'm just saying it would be fascinating. But you're right. It's not going to happen. But if we could have been a fly on the wall, maybe I could have worded it that way to really know what happened. Yeah, you're never going to see a book. That's what I mean, a book that is accurate in what happened behind the scenes. So thank you, Ken, for calling me to task, taking me to task. I appreciate that. Oh, by the way, yesterday, in a somewhat breaking story from last night, Mike Johnson has fired a pro-Ukraine Intel Committee chairman with close deep state ties. This is Speaker Johnson has removed Representative Mike Turner from Ohio from the chairmanship of the House Intelligence Committee, reportedly due to concerns that President-elect Trump has about Turner. Johnson's decision to remove Turner from atop the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence was first reported by Punchbowl News yesterday, and it marks the first significant shakeup from Johnson in the new Congress. The Speaker has the sole authority to appoint the chairman of select committees. And although Johnson has delayed an official announcement on the committee's leadership this Congress, his removal of Turner surprised most on Capitol Hill. So those are the kind of changes that we were looking for, and that's kind of the tough decisions, the tough attitude that we were hoping from Speaker Johnson. Okay, Trump's outsider cabinet picks are rapidly gaining support, much to the chagrin of the media. That is a report by the AP News. One by one, all the president-elect's men and women are falling into place in his cabinet. Pete Hegseth's nomination was teetering towards collapse. He now appears on track for confirmation after a fiery hearing that focused on all those issues. You know, it was attacks on him personally. John Barrazo of Wyoming, the GOP whip, said these nominees are bold choices. But he predicts the Senate will begin starting to vote on Inauguration Day to confirm Trump's pick. Now, there's going to be some long haul. In the long haul, there's going to be some more difficult nominations. But they're saying, before we talk about Bondi, and it's not, and this isn't coming from a conservative outlet, saying that Hegseth, Reuters, Trump nominee Pete Hegseth weathers Democrat grilling to emerge largely unscathed. And we talked about this yesterday on the program, that we thought he did a great job. It was cool, calm, and collected under the attack by the Democrats on what was largely personal issues, which we're going to talk about because I mentioned that piece that we're going to get to a little bit later on, saying that's all that the Democrats have, that the grandstanding and the cheap shots are all that they have. Let's go to CNN and see their takeaways from the second day of Trump's cabinet confirmation hearings. And I would love to hear from you on what you thought. I specifically watched more of Bondi than Rubio. I've just basically seen transcripts on Rubio, but Bondi, I thought, did a wonderful job. Same as with Pete Hegseth, keeping calm under. They were trying to bully her. If you watch that and you didn't know, and if that were a Republican man going after Bondi, who was a Democrat woman, if this would have been the Biden administration or if Harris won, you would have seen a media that would nonstop be echoing the talking point that it was sexist how hard they went after her. So it's amazing to see. It's a kind of a snapshot into what we deal with the media as Republicans, because it got nasty. And she, at one point, even saying, I'm not going to be bullied by you, Senator. But the takeaways from the second day of Trump cabinet confirmations, according to far-left CNN, Bondi vows to lead an independent Justice Department. They over and over talked about this nonsense of prosecution by Trump of his enemies. They talked about January 6th. They talked about 2020, not learning their lesson. This idea that we're supposed to ignore the fact that they literally used lawfare to go after their political opponents, but now we're supposed to accept this nonsensical enemies list, essentially. Very often saying I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. No one has been prejudged, nor will anyone be prejudged if I'm confirmed. I don't want to get. She did clash with Adam Schiff. She went after Adam Schiff on a couple quick issues that I thought was wonderful, calling out his being censored by the Senate or censored by Congress, going after some of his very questionable. And it's interesting when a senator doesn't normally expect pushback, because you've seen these hearings before, and it's they just talk over and they're not even looking for an answer. They're grandstanding. But in this instance, there's a few times where she shut people down because they were not expecting. Pete Hegseth did it a little bit as well, but not expecting that answer, thinking that they had the upper hand the whole time, and were quickly informed that they did not have the upper hand. Trump's 2020 election lies still loom over the DOJ role, according to CNN, because it's all the Democrats talk about. Top Democrats say Rubio is well qualified to serve as Secretary of State, and I'll be honest, that's one of the reasons why I didn't watch Rubio. Just reading some of the transcripts, because he seems like kind of an easy confirmation. I want to see how, and maybe I'm wrong there, but how they went after Bondi. So enough on that. Let's talk about Pam Bondi. Look at all these waves and comments coming in. We've had a great week so far, haven't we, folks, on the program? Having all these great conversations. Bondi vows to end the weaponization of justice if confirmed. Now, Bondi was a Trump supporter since the beginning of his political career. She served as defense lawyer for Trump in his first impeachment trial and as co-chair of Women for Trump during the 2020 election. She most recently supported Trump in May at his New York criminal hush money trial. In her opening statement, Bondi told the Senate Judiciary Committee the American people expect and deserve more from the department. If confirmed, I will do everything in my power, and it will be my great responsibility to make America safe again. We will fight every day to restore confidence and integrity to the Department of Justice and each of its components. The partisanship, the weaponization will be gone. America will have one tier of justice for all. My overriding objective will be to return the Department of Justice to its core mission of keeping Americans safe and vigorously prosecuting criminals. And that includes getting back to basics: gangs, drugs, terrorists, cartels, our borders, our foreign adversaries. I believe we are on the cusp of a new golden age where the Department of Justice can and will do better if I am confirmed. We're going to talk about her when we come back, read some of your comments. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. We will be, what break am I on? There we go. We will be right back.
Hard water makes it hard to keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water softener, revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water you love.
Are you over 50? Would you like to get up to 33% more income in retirement? Then call now for this free book, Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers. This free book reveals little-known secrets about annuity strategies that will help you make the right choices before buying an annuity. Call right now for your free book, and as a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report, both absolutely free for calling Annuity General today.
Call 800-354-5972.
Hi, I'm Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. And in our family, we're used to getting involved, and I encourage you to do the same, especially when it comes to caring for your loved ones. When I think about Alzheimer's and the impact it had on my family, I recognize that losing a race isn't such a bad day after all. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. We have so many comments coming in. I didn't get a chance to get to all of them. I can't use some of the language in some of these, but I do appreciate it. We'll get to them in just a moment because I couldn't read them on the fly, and yes, I went to go get tea, and that I don't have a lot of time in the breaks. Okay, so Pam Bondi, and we will read your comments because I've got a break coming up very quickly because we ran late in the last one. Oh, here we go. Ken did respond to being drafted into the president, to being president of the Make New York Great Again campaign. Frank, I would humbly accept the position of president of the Make New York Great Again campaign, but I have one requirement. Frank Acom needs to be my co-president. By the way, I now have 2 votes. My wife voted for me, but I suspect she just wants me out of the house. Oh, no, Ken. Didn't see that one coming. I will do everything in my power to serve, Ken. Thank you. Thanks for thinking of me. Oh, no. I hope we're not starting something here. Well, I want to see New York great again. I do. So anything I can do to help in that process. Pam Bondi fends off onslaught from Democratic senators in a fiery clash during confirmation hearings. Man, when she called out, who was it when she said, not going to be bullied by you? Was it may have been, well, Adam Schiff she went after, and Alex Padilla? I'm sure I'm not saying that right. So she tried to answer about what she saw in Pennsylvania when it came to the 2020 election. But Padilla repeatedly cut her off. And again, I would say, watch that again and pretend there was different letters next to each of their names and how the media would cover it. That if Padilla had a R next to his name and she had a D next to her name, I think you would see a much different reaction from the media, calling it perhaps sexist, misogynistic. Kept cutting her off as she tried to finish the sentence and reminded her of the oath she had taken to serve as the Sunshine State's top cop. The senator prodding prompted Bondi to hit back. You pointed your finger at me and said you were speaking. Let me answer your question. I'm not going to be bullied by you. I guess you didn't want to hear my answer about Pennsylvania. So then he started asking her, interrupting her, to ask what the 14th Amendment says. Senator, she responded, quite calm and collected, I'm here to answer your questions. I'm not here to do your homework and study for you. Now, hey, you cut me off. Can I please finish? The 14th Amendment, we all know, addresses birthright citizenship. I love that, though. I'm here to answer your questions, not do your homework, because he thought he was set her up. We had a meeting. I'm paraphrasing. We had a meeting, and I asked you to look into the 14th Amendment. And she said, I'm not doing your homework for you. Adam Schiff, also getting similar treatment from Bondi. My first set of questions has to do with whether you have the independence to say no when you must say no. Senator, and then he asked that they would go after Jack Smith. And she said, Senator, I haven't seen the file. I haven't seen the investigation. I haven't looked at anything. It would be irresponsible for me to make a commitment. And then talked about Liz Cheney. No one asked me to go investigate Liz Cheney. We're also worried about Liz Cheney, Senator. You know what we should be worried about? The crime rate in California right now is through the roof. This is when you could tell she was starting to feel the groove. First it was Padilla, realizing that stopped him in his tracks. And then with Schiff, she saw it must be a weakness in his eye that he thought he could bully her and attack her. Again, if this were a different administration, I believe it would be labeled as men bullying a woman running for the top job. I do, because it got nasty, especially with both. And Adam Schiff didn't expect the pushback. So basically calling him to task to not fix the crime rate in California, because he's, if you're not familiar, Senator of California. Your robberies are 87% higher than the national average. That's what I want to focus on, Senator. And again, stopping him in his track. The freshman senator ignored the swipe. He didn't know what to say. Asked whether Bondi had the intestinal fortitude to tell Trump that he lost the 2020 election. Bondi shrugged that off as a gotcha. Senator, what I can tell you is I will never play politics. You're trying to engage me in a gotcha. I won't play politics with any ongoing investigation like you did leaking your colleague Devin Nunes's memo. Yeah, she's feeling good right now, right? Like when you see this maybe in fights or something like that, where someone realizes they just got the upper hand. She realized she had the upper hand. So she first goes after California's crime rate as a dig to him, and then saying, I won't play politics with any ongoing investigation like you did leaking your colleague Devin Nunes's memo. If you recall, Schiff, who was the ranking member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, had hit back at a memo from former chairman Devin Nunes alleging that the Justice Department, FBI, and former special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation was rife with bias. Later during the exchange with Bondi, Schiff drilled down on whether she would advise Trump's decision on whether the pardon scores of, if they want to pardon scores of January 6, 2021 Capitol rioters. She says, at this point, exasperated, knows she has the upper hand, says, you were censored by Congress, Senator, for comments just like this that are so reckless. After subsequent questioning from Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who went over his allotted time by a minute, Bondi later joked about deducting that minute from Schiff's second round of questioning later in the confirmation. Good. I thought she did a good job. Love to hear your thoughts on it. Excuse me, Bondi shuts down the Democrat senator's questioning attack another Trump nominee. Richard Blumenthal saying, is that a person who appropriately should be the FBI director? Aren't those comments inappropriate? Shouldn't you disavow them and ask him to recant them? And that was in response to something that Kash Patel, who's been tapped to lead the FBI, had said, that he had like an enemies list. Bondi replied, Senator, I'm not familiar with those comments. I've not discussed those comments with Mr. Patel. What I do know is Mr. Patel, again, she gets cut off by Blumenthal, and Bondi, who did a great job pressing forward being the aggressor, saying, excuse me. What I do know is Mr. Patel was a career prosecutor. He was a career public defender, defending people. And he also has the great experience within the intelligence community. What I can sit here and tell you is Mr. Patel, if he works with running the FBI, if he is confirmed and I'm confirmed, we will follow the law. If I'm the Attorney General of the United States of America, and I don't believe he would do anything otherwise. Yeah, just this great back and forth. I want to read your comments, so I'm going to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. If you are just joining us, the breaking news early this morning that the Netanyahu has accused Hamas of trying to back out of the ceasefire deal already. We'll try to find out more about it. I'll probably talk about it on tomorrow's program. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
I'm Mia Crawford. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is history making. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today. Wow, for your business and home security needs. What a great amount of comments we're getting here as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Let's start. Well, I hope we have time. Good morning, Frank. Hey, good morning. I know how bad that speech was last night. I now know how bad that speech was last night, I think. I opted not to watch it because I knew that it was going to end up what it was going to end up being. But otherwise, I did watch the hearings, and how pathetic assassination of character of both Pete and Pam shows you how small the Democrat Party is, Sergeant Dave. Thank you, Sergeant Dave. Appreciate that. Yes, and we're going to, exactly to your point, because I don't want to run late on it. There's a piece that echoes what you were saying exactly. Next comment. Let's keep going. Jeez. Pretty funny that I appreciate what you're saying here, but we're just going to say the hosts of The View think that Trump would go after them. They really think they are that important? Oh, I couldn't agree more. There's so many of these like B, C, D list celebrities that said something bad. Think of Kathy Griffin, right? Is that her name? The comedian who had that famous picture of her holding a decapitated Trump head back in 2016. She said, come and see my performances if you want to, because I may not be here. I might be in an internment camp very soon. I can't even remember her name. I'm not doing that to be rude or anything like that. Just can't remember exactly what her name was. There's so many like that. The people on The View, these like late night hosts, these like Jimmy Kimmel said it, people that are like at noon on MSNBC saying it. So I couldn't. Yeah, they are very full of themselves. That's one thing about the media, though. By the way. Next up, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I keep hearing that the world is laughing at us because of Trump. After hearing Trump's cabinet picks being grilled by our elected senators, it's clear that anyone who's breathing can become a senator. That's what's laughable, but more sad than funny. I agree. And let's face it, even though the ceasefire is in the balance right now, that's all because of Trump's threat. They're not laughing at us. That's bluster to hide their fear that they're going to have to pay their fair share if they're an ally. They have to, these type of things. The tariffs that cost Trudeau, his job. I mean, they want a president there that they can control. And their fear comes from they know they can't control Trump. That Trump is looking out for America first. So yes, and to your point about senators, Mullen even said, which was so funny, Senator Mullen, saying, you look at what we have here, you talk about credentials with Pete Hegseth. You know the credentials of being a senator? You just got to be alive. You got to be, a certain age and got to be an American citizen. So you have no credentials. What are your credentials? But because people voted for you, it was a good point. Yes, it's pretty scary when you think of some of the people running things in the Senate and in the House. Next up, comment from a different viewer. The questions asked of Pam about Kash Patel show who they are most afraid of. The secrets buried in the FBI files will be the ruin of many people. Thanks, Fred. Appreciate that. Morning. Hey, good morning. It just occurred to me that pardons in general are, in a manner of speaking, reminiscent of a dictatorship and is representative of everything that a democracy is not. If someone has been convicted by their peers, for one person to say essentially, no, you are wrong, and I'm going to pardon this person, seems wrong to me, and this power should be revoked. Oh, interesting point. It should be revoked. I know it's been misused, but Clinton, of course, this year with Biden. Continuing. Good morning, Frank. Good morning. The only thing Biden's dark warning about the oligarchy was that there were space aliens, and their supreme leader was already here, their leader from planet Elania. Okay, Elon Musk. There you go. Yeah, I think a good point made by a viewer earlier on, that oligarchy is a threat to democracy only when they're not pushing the authoritarian agenda, the liberal agenda. Good point. Comment from a different viewer. I think Bondi did a great job answering questions and didn't deserve to be bullied, but handled it well and put them in their place. Totally agree. And then clapping emoji. I couldn't agree more with you. She didn't deserve to be bullied. That's what they were doing. As I said, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but if it were different parties involved in this, it would have been deemed race or sexist or misogynistic. In this case, she handled it fantastically, and you could just tell. She could sense that, for lack of a better term, blood in the water, that sense of weakness in Schiff's eyes, and we've all seen it. That look of fear that he has, very easily intimidated. He didn't want to be. He wanted to be tough against Bondi, and Bondi just gave it right back to him and really shut him up, because you're not expecting someone to go after you when he doesn't have a response and doesn't try to interrupt her, to stop her. She did a great job. Very impressed. Very, very impressed. And that ties in with this piece to what Sergeant Dave said. The first round of confirmation hearings for Trump's cabinet appointees shows that Democrats aren't interested in governing, only grandstanding. Look at the circus around Pete Hegseth. Mazie Hirono, a lefty stalwart, debuted an utterly bizarre line about Hegseth greenlighting military invasion of Greenland or takeovers of the Panama Canal. She also asked if Hegseth would follow a hypothetical order from Trump to shoot protesters. Virginia's Tim Kaine sternly wagged his finger at Hegseth over allegations of bad behavior towards women. Pretty rich coming from a man who went puppy eyes gaga in public for Bill Clinton. Liz Warren, who lied about having Native American heritage to prosper in academia, went after Hegseth for his honesty. Pathetic, zero substance, 100% partisan theater. And that same cheap circus barker mentality was on display during Pam Bondi's Judiciary Committee hearing. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse opened by asking if Bondi had an enemies list and demanded to know under what circumstances will you prosecute journalists. Connecticut's Richard Blumenthal also asked if Bondi could say no to the president when he asked you to do something unethical or illegal. Corrupt Russiagate liar California Senator Adam Schiff followed this absurd line of questioning even deeper down the rabbit hole, with Bondi landing body blows in response. Notably, as Schiff kept talking over her, answering his own questions, she finally erupted, "You were censored by Congress, Senator, for comments just like this. They're so reckless." A dig centering on his repeated public claim about Trump lies to Russia that turned out false. Bondi will be tasked with running and restoring an agency hollowed out and politicized by utterly weak Attorney General Merrick Garland, who did have an enemies list. It included concerned public school parents and religious Catholics, and clearly never told his boss no. Schiff and company's casting of Bondi as a female Nixon in an attempt to pump some vitality into the flagging fortunes of their just whomped party. Like Carino and Kaine, they're not trying to generate, or they're just trying to generate sound bites. This is what we said on the program yesterday as well, to boost their fundraising. Yes, 2026 is barreling towards us already, don't forget. These senior elected officials are no different. In other words, from the adult babies who invaded Energy Secretary-designate Chris Wright's hearing Wednesday to blubber and wave signs about how evil fossil fuels are, maybe this sweaty-browed huffing and puffing still plays with rubes who seal clap for Rachel Maddow and Stephen Colbert. But the 2024 election results suggest it won't move anyone else. Sad, the National Democrat leadership is as out of touch with political realities as its members are loud, narcissistic, and null on policy. I thought that was a great point from the New York Post. All right, we've had so many great comments, folks. Thank you for all of them this morning. We're going to wrap things up, so get your last-minute comments in right now. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Please stay with us.
Heather and I had an argument just like any other couple. I was lost and lonely. I had snapped, I had a gun, and I was going to take my own life. Heather helped me realize that there was still life to live. For the better of myself, my family, my weapon is now safely put away.
My son, Ricky, took his life by the use of a firearm. It broke me in ways that I never knew that I could be broken. And I contemplated suicide. Afterwards, we found out his girlfriend, she was pregnant. If that was my grandson, I was gonna have to be here for him. I still own my firearm. I keep it in a safe because I want to keep my grandson and myself safe.
A moment of crisis can happen to anyone.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We don't have a lot of time, so we have a lot to get to. I also like that Bondi, we haven't mentioned this, called out Mazie Hirono for not meeting with her, refusing to meet with me. Senator Hirono, I wish you had met with me. Had you met with me, we could have discussed many things and gotten to this issue. I'm listening to you now, she said. Well, you were the one who has refused to meet with me, but that would have been discussed. My job as Attorney General. She is seen as a steady force to steer the DOJ in Trump's second term. That's how they are responding to Pam Bondi's performance. That you have even some Democrats saying that she did a good job. Senator Peter Welch saying I had a good meeting with her. Anyway, Marco Rubio, by the way, defended his tough Beijing stance at the confirmation hearing, and thank goodness he does. He has been banned from China, by the way. That's how tough his stance is, Marco Rubio. So that looks like it went well as well. President-elect Donald Trump tweeted out, or he wrote out on Truth Social. I like this too. Ready? In order to save time, this is President-elect Donald Trump. In order to save time, money, and effort, it would be helpful if you would not send or recommend to us people who worked with or are endorsed by Americans for No Prosperity, headed by Charles Koch, Dumb as a Rock John Bolton, Bird Brain Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, disloyal warmonger Dick Cheney, and his psycho daughter Liz, Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan, General Mark Milley, James Mattis, Mark Jesper, or any of the other people suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, more commonly known as TDS. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So basically saying, hey, if you want someone in my administration that has a good reference from any of these people, don't waste your time and don't waste mine. Oh, by the way, Vivek Ramaswamy, if you did not see, met with DeWine to maybe discuss his being appointed to the Ohio Senate, or to, I worded that strange, to the Ohio Senate seat. He's under consideration. All right, as we go, wow, waves coming at the last minute. Hope you've been watching this whole time. Ex-New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's political prospects look even better in a run for mayor as another poll has come out showing him as the clear frontrunner. It tells you a lot about what we're dealing with New York State. That's why you got a lot of work ahead of you, Ken, to make New York great again. Yeah. And he has nearly $8 million in his war chest, is what is being reported. Also, Hochul has raised, and now this is a different race. We're talking about Cuomo running for mayor. Hochul has raised $10 million for her own reelection and raising for the state Democratic Party as well. That is it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Have a great day, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow morning starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking, only on Big Fox.
Are you ready for winter in New York State? Ready for thrills like this? Discoveries like this? Views like this? Are you ready to make memories? Plan the perfect trip or have an impromptu getaway. It's time to explore everything that makes New York easy to love. Discover more at iloveny.com.